Welcome to Watching Code Office Hours. This is session number 76. The purpose of these sessions is that if you're going through any of the material in Watching Code and you have a question about it, you can just ask me directly, so you don't have to worry about ever getting stuck with anything. And so the way it works is you just call into this video chat and you can ask questions kind of one-on-one in this video chat environment. So I have a couple of logistical things to mention, and then we'll get started. Number one is you want to join the Facebook group to get information about upcoming sessions. So for example, if there's a schedule change or additional announcements, that's where info will be posted. Second, if you want to call in and ask a question, you need to get into the Hangout, and you can find the link right here. So if you're looking at the live stream on YouTube, then look at the description and you'll get this document, and then you'll be able to find the link right here. And it's also posted on the Facebook group right here, the column link right there. And those are just logistical things. New stuff is I just wrapped up a really big series on Accounting.js. So the series finale was released, I guess it was last week. And I'm starting to work on a new series that is I'm really excited about. I think that, so it's going to go over a library that is pretty well known and give you more practice with kind of testing and more fundamental things like that. And it's also going to reinforce a lot of the things that we've already learned, but in a little bit more, in ways that are a little bit more advanced. So in particular, you'll want to look forward to getting more practice with the testing and just like thinking more like the kind of programming thinking stuff. And so I'll talk. So once I go off the air, I'll if you stick around and join the off the air chat, I can talk more about it. It's just still very, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, so I don't want to announce something yet. So that's the new stuff. Like, I guess more details coming soon. In terms of like the estimate of when the new stuff will come out, very, very rough estimate, since it is hard to know in advance how long it will take, especially when I'm reading a new code base. It can take a lot longer than I think it will take. But I think that the earliest, very, very optimistically, the earliest would be the end of this week or early next week, but that's very aggressive. More likely is the end of next week-ish timeframe. So look for that. And then if you come the next office hours and stuff, you can probably get another update on that. So those are just the logistical things I wanted to announce. And then we'll just from here go into open questions. So there aren't that many students called in today, so I think it'll be a short session. I know, Sherry, you don't have a question, right?
I do not have a question, but I did start working on, I forgot, I never did that final beast challenge. So I did start working on that. But you know, I got so fixated on just working with the number as a string and moving the decimal over. I forgot the whole point was for the rounding. So I actually have to redo it.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
So.
it can be tricky. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's complicated in the sense that you have to keep track of a lot of things, but each given thing is itself not that hard.
Yeah, you know what? I rewatched that section because it was so long ago. And as I say, you know, I know we were talking about kind of the hack in terms of just moving the decimal over. And because I was so fixated on that in my code, I forgot that the whole point of that was to get it so it rounded correctly. I just didn't even factor that part in. So I need to go back and make some changes and then do that part. So
cool.
I'll have it done this week probably, and then I'll be done with that last one. I still have to upload everything to, or push everything through to GitHub. So hopefully I'll do that this week or over the weekend.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Sherry, and thanks for dropping by too.
Sure, my pleasure.
And then if you have any thoughts or anything, just let me know.
Sounds good.
All right. Jason, what have you been up to? Are you back into learning?
Unfortunately, no. Well, I learn every day on the job, but unfortunately, not back to it yet with this. Like 15
Okay.
minutes ago, I had to kick all the kids out of my room. But we're getting to 8:30. 8:30. It's time for me to learn again, listen to this, and get back into the groove. So I keep saying the same thing, but I'm here.
It will happen. I'm confident it will happen.
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited about new stuff, even though I'm behind what you already put out. So
I think that the new stuff will get you pumped to catch up to.
yeah, and I'm scared that I might fast forward. Possibly. I hope I don't, because I got a lot of catching up to do.
Mhm.
And I made that mistake before. Is fast forward. No, I didn't fast forward. I just went too quick. So just takes time, and life's busy.
Mhm. Yep.
I'll make it there.
I hear you.
What, an hour a day? I think I could catch up pretty quick, right?
Yeah, I think so. An hour a day, I think you can. People are always surprised how much you can accomplish in an hour a day. If you like, the first day or two won't feel like anything, but if you do it for like 2 weeks
Yeah,
and look back, you'll probably be impressed with your progress.
it's like working out. It's just getting back into the rhythm of it.
Right. Exactly.
So once I start, I won't stop. So wait for that starting point. I'll catch up.
Even like 30 minutes a day, even if that's worth it too.
Yep,
You can manage that.
agree.
All right. Well, it's good to see you, Jason. If you have any questions or thoughts as we go along, just shout. I'll get to you.
Yes, sir.
We got a new person today. It's Chidima.
Yeah, Chidinma.
Chidima. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No, you got it.
So, did you have any questions or anything?
Um, Not really. I'm just excited to start this new um premium section.
Mm-hmm.
So just finishing the particle jazz. A lot of things really make sense, although towards the end of the requirement, I struggled a little bit, but I had to go through it again and it was making sense. So, but I'm ready to start premium right now.
Got
Yeah.
it.
So in my office, we use JavaScript in my office. I used to know Java a little bit, but because they really want me to know JavaScript in my office, even though I'm working as a QA engineer, you know, and so with this particle JS, a lot of things are beginning to make sense. When you talk about some things, it's kind of like I'm no longer so much in the dark. Things are beginning to like clear up for me. So that's why I can't even wait to start the premium section. So my understanding is I had to look at the video, right? Follow the video, then follow you guys whenever you have anything like this going on, right? That's my
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah. So the core stuff is all in the videos, and um, so all that stuff is there for you, and then the things like office hours and then the daily accountability meetings that you've probably read about if you looked at the first few lessons,
Yeah.
they're just there for for support. So um, if you are uncomfortable with certain topics, and we can discuss them and make sure that you feel good about everything before you continue on to the next step. So yeah, so a lot of the students just join these anyway, just because to kind of see where other people are at, because often, you know, like Chidemas, like let's say that people start asking questions about practical JavaScript, even though you finish that, it can be like helpful because it's kind of review for you, and you can like get kind of refresh your memory without really kind of passively remind yourself of things. So in that sense, it can be helpful too.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
So,
but it's really however you want to use it
mhm,
to support your learning.
okay. So, so the training, is it 1 month, 1 month period? Um,
Well,
um, for the premium, does it have a limit?
what do you mean by that?
Like I know Particle JS was free, then the premium we paid for it. But I was just wondering, does it have like a duration you take it?
It's self-paced, so it's monthly. It's a subscription, so you get charged monthly,
Okay.
and then you go at your own pace. So, I mean, on the pace will vary wildly because like some people are doing it full time, some people are doing it, they have a job already. It sounds like you're already working,
Yeah.
so they're going to go at a different pace, and since you've experienced, you might go a little bit faster than someone that's completely new that's also working full time, right? So whatever pace you're at, it's it's up to you.
Okay. So yeah, so my understanding is I can ask question from Particle JS. Is that what you were saying before? I could.
You can ask questions about anything related to watching code.
Oh, okay. Okay, just about it. Okay, that sounds very good.
Yep. So it's probably as you get further into premium, you'll probably have more questions, and then you can ask him here,
Okay.
and I'll be happy to help.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, and if you have any questions during the session too, let me know, and I'll be happy to help out.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, let's move on to, is it L? I don't know what your name is.
Hi, it's me, Lashara.
Oh, it's Lashar. Okay. I can never tell. You always have a pseudonym of some sort.
Have to conceal. The last couple weeks, I kind of fell off the wagon, and now I'm back on. I'm doing not simple tests. I'm sorry. I'm doing the testing series filter video. I'm off this entire week, so I'm really like, instead of spending 8 hours at work, I think I'm gonna spend 7 hours watching code to try to catch up with what I missed out on the last couple of weeks. So yeah. So yeah, that's it. I don't have many questions. Everything, your videos are explained really well, and anything I don't understand, I usually find online, or I look through the Slack channel and just search it, and most people have already asked that question and a lot of information. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, glad you're back at it. Lashara, what was did you already know about testing, or like what's been your reaction to the testing stuff? What do you think about it?
Well, it's my first real exposure, so I tried to learn Selenium WebDrive, but you have to know Python, and I was like, I don't know Python, so I need to, learn Python, but it's, a long story short, then I found watching code. So I don't know much about testing, actual testing. I'm just reading about it because, like you said, one of my career ambitions is to be a software tester. So that's actually the reason why I'm really interested in this particular series, the Simple Testing series. But first impressions is I didn't realize testing would be done in HTML. I asked the question in the Slack chat. I'm not sure if anyone answered, but because I had seen all these other software suites that software testers use, I didn't realize you could also just test in HTML with the testing JavaScript file.
Well, I'm looking for your question. It was in, let me see. So you did have a question.
Yeah, but I mean, I went online looking for some information, and I kind of got a response or found an answer, but really didn't. So yes, I was like,
Oh, so Sagir replied to you.
Oh, okay. I've been practicing since last night.
So Sagir wrote, tests and their corresponding code are embedded as scripts. I can just let me just share my screen because people probably have no idea what I'm talking about. All right, can you see my screen? So Lashara, here's your question, and then Sagir replied the objective of the testing series is to teach how to approach test-driven development. Tests and their corresponding code are embedded as scripts in the same HTML page, because I think it's the easiest way to get started. Also, just my personal opinion. I'm reading someone else's answer, by the way. I'm not talking myself. Also, just my personal opinion, but I think it makes it slightly more convenient to have tests and code in one place, so you don't have to keep switching back and forth between them. In production code bases, however, you will generally end up keeping your tests separate from your code.
Okay.
Yeah, I have nothing else to add. That's right. The reason I did it, well, so it's the same thing. You can link to a separate JavaScript file in the script tag, or you can in the script tag write your JavaScript. It's equivalent. It's no different. If you've really, because our code was really short and quite small, and we like had no HTML. Like the HTML was there mostly just to load the script. So, it just made things simple. And I find that, like, generally people do, especially for bigger projects, you want to separate your files out into, have your source code for a feature, and then you have a separate file to test that feature. But when we had stuff that's so short, I think it's more convenient just to lump it together. And because the point is really just to see how the tests interact with the code. And then later on, you'll see in Accounting.js, for example, that they do separate the tests from the code. And also with the next series that shall be unnamed at the moment, you'll see the same thing, that the source code and feature code is separate from the tests, and they're often just written in a separate folder even. So the organization doesn't matter. Like you can really organize it however you want, but the way that the code relates to the tests is always the same. And so that's the kind of point I wanted to make sure to emphasize, so that so that we didn't go into a discussion about structure and that kind of thing, because that's varies depending on this. Like, I think the right structure varies depending on the size of your project. Like a very, very large project, you probably want more structure. With a very, very small project, more structure actually gets in the way, because if you have like 2 files with 4 lines each, and you have to like get back and forth constantly, it's actually annoying to do that. But on the flip side, if you have 2 files that have like 100 lines of code each, maybe you do want them separate into different files. So it depends. But I think it's always easier to, by default, start out with less structure and kind of have more like a dumped all in one place kind of experience. And then as you find that becomes overwhelming, then you start to separate it out, versus prematurely separating everything out to start with. And then you have like all these really short files when you may not necessarily need that, all that, like all the folders, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes absolutely perfect.
Yeah. And also technically they're the same. So there's that aspect as well. Like, I think it's just really unusual, because usually when people write JavaScript, they write it in a separate JavaScript file and then they link it in the script tag. Most people, at least for a beginner, you've probably never seen just the JavaScript dumped right into the script file. But at least now you know you can do that. So it's like it's literally like you could put the code there, you can put a link, a shortcut to the code, is almost like one way to think about it.
Okay, cool, great. Thanks for answering my question. Yeah, but yeah. So my thoughts, I don't really have any, because I'm, don't have many expectations, no experience. So I just thought, why are we doing this in HTML? So that was my first observation.
Got it. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, if other things come up too, let me know. I think sometimes I might do something and I kind of forget that it looks pretty weird if you never seen it that way. So it's good to call those things out. So then in the future I can just say like, maybe you haven't seen this before, but it's the same. Basically, I just repeat the same thing Sagir said. So Sagir, if you're watching, thank you for helping out. I'll type out in the code. I'll type out in Slack too.
Mhm.
Sagir. All right. Okay, cool. Anything else, Lashara? Any other thoughts or anything?
Nothing that I can think of. Yeah, nothing that I can think of right now at this moment. Like I said, most of the questions that I have, people have either asked them, or I found the information online, or I actually write out the question, follow the steps that you gave for asking a question, and then I answer my own question. That's happened more often than not. So, yeah.
Awesome. I'm very happy to hear that. That's like
Yeah.
the most important. I think it's like the
Mhm.
most important sign of progress, that you can figure things out more often than not. It's a really great sign.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining, Lashara, and I hope that we'll see you in the daily meetings too, if you're around, at least this week.
I'll try.
Okay. No pressure. All right. Well, I guess that's everyone. So I think we'll have a short session today. I'll do one last sweep and check the YouTube page and the Facebook group and see if there are any, and also let me know if there are any questions that like you saw that like have been unanswered. I can try to answer any unanswered questions that have been lingering. All right, so YouTube is clear, no questions there. Let me check the Facebook. No questions. Let me share my screen on the Facebook. Maybe there's some things that, because there are a couple questions that people have asked and then other students have answered, and maybe I can chime in possibly. Yeah, so John had a question, and you can kind of read it. I guess the gist of the question, how would I distill this? Basically, I guess John's question is about how to allocate his time between learning through tutorials and just working on things on his own. And I think I think my answer is gonna be a little bit different than the answers that the other students have. You can read the Voya's answer and Tyler's answer too, but I think my take on it is that the worse you are at programming, the more time you should spend on tutorials. And so that means at the beginning, when you're the most terrible, you don't know anything, you should spend almost all your time on learning. As you get better, you should spend less time. And at the beginning, I think you should spend 100% of your time on learning, because you can't even do anything. So obviously you need to start from somewhere. But as you get better and better and better over time, in the kind of steady state, as you're a mature professional developer, whatever that means, you've been doing it for a couple of years and feel pretty confident. At that point, you're going to be working probably. So all of your time is taken up by projects or self kind of motivated things or work. But even then, I think you should spend a significant minority of your time still learning, because you want to get better. You don't want to stagnate And so, in that steady state, I think spending 10 to 20% of your time on learning new things is something that you'll want to do. So basically, you start at 100% learning, like on day one when you're the worst. And then as you get better and better and better in the steady state, you want to spend maybe 10 to 20% of your time doing tutorials. So that's something that you need to figure out. It's not like I don't tell you how to do that. But watching code would be in that 100% at the beginning, and then in the steady state it would be part of that 20% at the end.
You don't have that horrible graph available?
The graph?
I was just gonna, I was thinking the same thing. But you know what, Gordon, can I add something to that as a student
Sure.
and not as you, being that it's your program? Would that be
Sure.
okay? Because I kind
Of
of,
course.
well, I kind of take his question to be a little bit different. I could be totally wrong, but what I would say is, I don't look at the premium as being the typical tutorials that many people come across when they're trying to learn programming, whatever language it is. So obviously in this case, JavaScript. I think that especially in the premium, it's really more real world programming and applying it. So, I mean, if you think about it, the testing aspect is a really important aspect. And most tutorials, even when they're teaching how to do something, they're not including the testing. So that's even one element that I think right off the bat is very different. And then if you look at, for example, the accounting JS, it's not like you're teaching how to create something or build it. You're actually doing what many developers have to do in a job, and that's working with an existing code base. And whether it's debugging or understanding it, there's so many different things that go into that. And so, as someone who's obviously done all different types of tutorials, I really wouldn't look at the premium as being your average tutorial. I find that in the past, if I've done tutorials, it's almost like they're kind of saying, this is what you do and this is why, but it's not like you're really building something from scratch or working with an existing code base to understand and debugging and all that. I think it's a very, I almost want to say to John that I really wouldn't think of the premium as a tutorial. I think it's really real world learning, and all of the stuff that we go over in premium and that you learn from it, it's actually going to get applied to him working on his own projects or real world projects. So that's how I would answer that question. But that's just one student.
I like that. I like Sherry's answer better than my answer. So
I like it a lot.
We'll go back in time and substitute my answer with Sherry's answer. Yeah, I think maybe I did miss the question a little bit. I think what, kind of extending what Sherry said is, I think a lot of tutorials, how to describe it, a lot of them are focused on building things from scratch, which sounds really appealing, but the reality of the matter is that that doesn't really simulate reality very well. Like Sherry said, when you go to your first job, you're not going to build things from scratch. Even in your second, third, or fourth job, it's pretty unusual to do that. You're usually working on an existing project that's probably quite large. And so being able to thrive in that environment where you're trying to basically reverse engineer other people's stuff is probably the most difficult and the most important skill. And so when you look at the build from scratch tutorials, or even worse, the encyclopedia, 5 topics, and we're going to go over them in totally independent from any actual code, that's not, it's preparing you for a world that doesn't really exist, right? And so that distinction, I think, is interesting. What the tutorials that you want and the tutorials that are easy to make are not the ones that actually prepare you for reality. But at Watching Code, it's something that I am intensely fixated on. Like, how do I simulate the learning curve you're going to hit, and then, you know, that's going to hit you in the face when you start working on at a company, or what Jason said, or your first job or whatever, or working on open source, right? So if you're going to work on an open source project, it already exists, and it's a much different problem than build a Airbnb clone or Reddit clone or whatever is popular these days. And it sounds boring too, like being able to read someone else's code, just, it's not something people want to learn. And that's why I've almost started to tell students, because sometimes they'll be confused about Watching Code, and they'll ask, like, you know, does it cover these 3 buzzwords that they saw in a job description? And I'll usually say no, because it probably doesn't. And I'll also say that when you look at the Watching Code curriculum, I expect you to be confused, and for you to not want to do it is almost how is what I expect. And so the reason is because I think as a beginner, it's very hard to have an accurate idea of what is actually going to hit you in the face versus what you think you need to know. Because what you think you need to know is dictated by mostly other courses, whatever is selling the most copies right now, whatever's hot, and then also job descriptions and job postings, which kind of parrots what's hot as well. So that is the way most people are prioritizing things and trying to figure out what's important. They're not really being thoughtful about it. So I don't know how much that's related to John's question. I think we're getting
Gordon,
further and further away from it. But
I actually have one other thing to add that is related back to John's question in terms of I can't even recall, and maybe it's just the tutorials in the past that I've done, but I can't recall any tutorial that also shows how important it is and how well to use debugger to figure things out. And I think that's the other extremely valuable thing that goes on in Watching Code as well, is that the constant use, because I find even someone like I obviously would use the debugger a lot and go into Chrome DevTools and all that. And I learned so many new ways of using it and looking for things that I hadn't even realized in the past. So I think that's also just, as I say, I feel like Watching Code is really more, it's more of a real world experience. It's not a tutorial, which is why it's an incredible learning experience and so valuable, because I think everything we do here gets applied to everything else. It's not like a tutorial where you're doing one thing and then it's when you're tasked to create something that is deviating from what you did in that tutorial, you know, elsewhere, that's not as easy because you don't really understand why you did something. You just know that you did something for this tutorial to build X, but you don't fully understand why or how to even apply that in other settings. So that's the last part of that.
Yeah, I think that's well said. So thank you, Jason and Sherry, for your input. Yeah, and the other thing I think what's interesting about John's question is that it presupposes that tutorials can be either building or tutorial style. And I think what most students mean by tutorial style is like, we have 5 topics, we're going to talk about them, like that kind of like I'm sure you're like, for example, let me be more concrete, everything you need to know about closures, and then, you know, that for every single topic. That's like a classic tutorial. So people think of that style of tutorial, or the build X clone tutorial, and they always want to ask, what which is what, which of those buckets does watching code fall into, and it doesn't fall into either of those. It really is different, and it's not something that if you're doing practical JavaScript and you're listening to this now, it's not something that you would probably imagine. You have to kind of see it to understand it. Maybe that's a very cop-out way to avoid explaining it. But I think if you listen to what Sherry said, that was a better explanation. So it's the debugging and all the boring skills that that you don't know about and you don't want to know about. I guess I can share this article which kind of talks about this topic in more depth. I just thought of it right now. So you can go to this URL, and I kind of talk about what watching code is about, kind of the philosophy behind things. And if I know, Command F boring. Yeah. Watching code is about all the core skills that great developers possess. These are incredibly important, but sound boring and forgettable. They're things like reading code, consistency in style, debugging, which Sherry talked about, refactoring, and testing, which Lashara talked about. So, and then, so I think those are the kind of the core pillars of watching code. And then like kind of at the top or the base, I don't know, however you want to think about it, like the most important thing is the ability to take any code base and rip it apart. And that's like it's a combination of all these skills. So in particular reading, but also debugging. And also you have to know something about testing too, because a lot of times you can learn a lot about a code base by reading the tests. For example, if they're failing, it obviously tells you something about the code base. If they're succeeding, it tells you something else. And then if you read the tests and you can kind of discern the quality and have judgment around what makes a good test, you can learn a lot from that. You can kind of get a sense for how robust the features in the code are, how brittle they are. Like, is it, if you use it slightly differently, is it going to break? Like, is it going to handle all the edge cases? And those are the kinds of things we focus on, right? So I don't think no beginner ever told me, man, are we going to learn about debugging? Never. Are we going to learn about reading? Never. No one's ever said that. But that's what you need to know. I wish people would ask, like, even if, I wouldn't expect any beginner to come to me and ask for these skills, but it would be really heartening and impressive. And actually, a handful of students have done this. They've asked me if we focus on these skills, but it's like a handful. I can count, with less, with one hand, the number of students that have asked that. But a better question, if you don't know what these things are, is how can I get good? Right? Because that asks the question from a perspective that is focused on your skills and your competence rather than how can I learn Node or how can I learn React? Like, that's a poor question, I think, if you're trying to get good. And if you're trying to learn React, I think that's fine. But I think most people that ask me, do you teach React? They actually want to know, how do I get good, right? And so if you're wondering how you can get good at programming, but the question you're asking is how do you learn React, then I think you need to ask a better question. Because if you don't, the quality of your questions will dictate the outcomes that you have, not just here, but in everything. So it's something that you should be very thoughtful about. Yeah, so take a look at this. So it goes into these, if you're interested about this conversation, then take a look at it, and it goes more in depth on this topic. All right. That was interesting. So let me take a look at the other Facebook posts and see if there's anything else to add. Lashara, Chidima, Jason, Sherry, do you have anything else you want to add, or before we move on?
I don't think I do.
I have something of, it kind of goes on the topic of me trying to get back into this. Like I've went back to the folder where I completed a lot of stuff already, and I forget. And you always tell me, at least you taught me back in the day, to get rid of noise, get rid of things that are complicating your starting again. So I have like the folder of like a couple beast challenges and stuff. I kind of want to start with test-driven development again. Would your recommendation be to just like rename that folder, don't look at it again, start test-driven and go from there? Because it's noise like what I've been through.
Yeah. I mean, I think this reminds me of a problem I have too, Jason, which is slightly different but the same, which is like, what book do I read? Not programming book, but just like I want, like to read books. Like, which book should I read? And usually there's like one book you really want to read right now, and it sounds to me like that. If you're talking about books, then reviewing, watching code is that one book you want to read right now, right? So just read it. But then the problem is like you bought, I sometimes buy books and I get really pumped about it, and then I just never look at it. I don't even open it, and if it sits on your bookshelf, and then you feel like, oh, maybe I should read that first before the book I really want to read. But I think what's more productive is to read the book you really want to read. And the fact that like you bought the book and then you kind of put it aside says something. Maybe you don't want to look at it anymore, or maybe it's not as important anymore. But so like, it's almost like to the extreme. What I've done is, if I have a book that's sitting there, I just get rid of it. I just donate it. And if I really need it, it'll come back to me.
What it reminds me of, remember your bookmark conversation? Like,
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that's in the videos, but like, you've had students or whatever, and you've seen people with 200 bookmarks. Well, basically my bookmarks are like, I completed a few, test-driven stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like, well, I already, I could go lean back on what I've already done, or should I just delete everything I've done and start from scratch?
No, well, wait, are you talking about watching code stuff?
Yes.
Oh, well, I don't know. Jason, for you, I think that, and I'm not sure, but I think
here it's like I just want to start from scratch and like delete the folder that I've already completed, like all of it, or at least 70-90% of it, and like stop using it as a crutch and just start from scratch, and like a new fresh sublime folder and start from scratch versus the folder I was working in and try to dive back in.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be harder to dive back in just because
I don't know where I left off.
You don't know where you left off. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe just, well, David's here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe just logistically, it's simpler to just nuke it and start again.
I think that's the way my brain's going to work. I'm going to dive back in, just nuke it and start from scratch, and it should go pretty quickly.
Yeah, and then if you find that, oh, I already know this stuff, then you can just speed it up or skip it, right? So that's possible for you, because I think that some of the stuff is going to go really quick and you remember everything and you don't need, I feel like it's a waste of time. And if you feel like that, then just go faster or skip it. Like, for example, like here's an instance from my recent experience, which I think some people might find funny, is that in the last accounting JS video, it was around the tests and it was around fixing a failing test. And it was like kind of, it was a regular expression issue. And when I was making that video, I actually forgot about regular expressions. Like, I forgot so much that I rewatched my own regular expression videos. And then I used that and then once I watched my own videos, I then was able to finish it. And that's fine, right? Like, so sometimes like preemptively, like, there are two ways I could have done it. I could have like been like, oh man, I don't remember accounting JS, and watch the whole series, right? But if you need a specific thing, you can just go back to it and to that specific thing, because like not all the videos are even super related, right? You can watch the regular expression videos in isolation, as you can like the library system videos and so on. So
I think I just need a kick in the butt. You telling me like,
Yeah. I think the most
Just-
important thing, Jason, is get started. Yeah. Above all else. And then I trust that you will figure out the
All
way after that. You
Yeah.
know, and if it's not the ideal the first time, then you adjust and you'll get there.
right on. All right, just need. I guess I should join the morning meetings. You guys will kick me in the butt.
Yeah, because we don't want to hear the same thing every day. It'll be very depressing for everybody.
Hey, David.
But yeah, there was one person that came to the morning meeting, and I really liked what he said. I can't remember who it was, but he was like, "Damn, like I didn't do anything yesterday, but I wanted to come here and say that I did it." And you know that was it was an exception for him. So you know he still showed his face and he told us he didn't do anything, and that was great. I was like,
Accountability, right?
yeah. I think the easy thing would just be like, oh, I didn't do anything. I don't want to show my face,
Right.
right? So
That's kind of where I was for a while.
so yeah, you'll figure out a system that works for you. I know you will.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Gordon, I have a question, if it's okay. You just reminded me when you said regex.
Yeah.
When we're working with the capture groups, you know how you use $ and say 1 or $2 to refer to the capture group? One thing that I kept forgetting to ask is it the I guess when you're using the $ and the number to refer to the capture group, is it automatically like for each capture group it's goes in order? So obviously the first one is always going to be $1, second one is $2. I think I was kind of wondering how it works when you have more than, let's say, 2. Is it just automatically kind of in number order?
All right, let's check. So let's say you want to super simple. This is a really simple regular expression, right? And so this capture group 1, capture group 2, capture group 3, right? So 1, 2, 3. Now you can complicate this by, let's say you have capture groups within a capture group. I didn't talk about this, but it follows the same rules. This is the first one. This is the second one. This is the third one. And then this is the fourth one. Right, so the leftmost parenthesis tells you which order it is. So the first left parentheses is the first capture group. This is the second. This is the third. This is the fourth. And then if you want to replace them, then let's make it not the same letter so we can also we don't need to have the nesting. That's confusing. But so you have $1 to refer to A, $2 to refer to B, and then $3 to refer to C, and then you can swap them. Swap. Capture group 2. Oh, this is not working. Oh, because there's no match. I'm an idiot. So, do you see how that works?
Yes, so I think that answered my question. So it is always in that order. And is there because I feel like I normally see just 1 or 2 capture groups. Is there a best practice, or is it, I guess, not the best use to have more than 2, or you can have as many as you need to have? Is there a
I don't know. I don't know that much to answer that question, but I mean,
Okay.
I can't imagine that. I mean, if you need it, then you need it, right? And then you want to think about, like, remember in the regular expression videos, I also really encourage you to think about the non-regular expression solution. It might be simpler. It might be easier to read. So you don't, I'd almost think about that. Like,
So
do
it
you
just
need to
it
use the regular
depends.
expression? Yeah, if you have to, then you have to, right? But the more complicated it is, the harder it is to understand, and it can get pretty hard to
Oh,
understand?
I think if I remember correctly, because it was a few weeks ago that I was working on something where I was trying to do several, and I think it was more, let's say, it was working on a challenge type of thing where you know, you had to obviously make changes to a given sentence. So maybe you had to look for anything that was, let's say, a symbol, or I guess you could say um, not a character or not a digit. And then you had to look for something. I think I was trying to also, I think I had to include looking for something if it was capital compared to lowercase. If I remember correctly, actually, I think I was running into an issue of how to just replace, I think how to capture a, let's say, a lowercase letter and then replace that exact same letter as an uppercase, but you didn't know what it was before. It was like a whole in-depth thing, and that's what made me realize this question with the, is there, doesn't matter if you have many. And then I think I was trying to figure out the best way of how to get a given letter as a lowercase and then replace that exact same letter. Like, I know obviously you can do in the brackets A through Z as a capital and it'll return capital, but that doesn't capture the specific letter that you're capturing from the lowercase to convert it. And I get, yes, and you could just do like 2 uppercase if you're not using regex, but there was a reason I was using regex. I can't fully remember it offhand, but
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so here's something that's really simple. You basically want to capture a first lowercase letter and then capture the second. So you get a full match on the second character if it's the same as the first character. So if you have if you have AA or BB or CC or DD, but if you have CA, it's not going to work.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this was different. It was kind of, you know, there might have been more than one capital letter within a sentence, but you don't know where it was going to be, and it's, you know, beyond just the first one. So it
Okay.
wasn't so much of, it's almost like if you think it was really doing the same thing as if you say, like, let's say you get the, you know, character at whatever index and then just do 2 uppercase, that kind of thing. But there were just many components in this question. That's why I was trying to do it with regex. And at some point, if I come across it or go back to it and can come up with like the specific question, then I'll bring it up next time.
Okay, cool. All right. So we're 5 minutes to the end of the hour. So let's go to David, see what David's up to. David, you there?
Hey, Gordon.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Yeah, I was going to jump in on the after party, but
Oh, okay. No questions?
no questions.
Okay, cool. Well, it's good to see you. We'll start in 5 minutes. And then you can join in. All right, well, let's look at the Facebook group for the last 5 minutes then, because it's kind of fun. It's like commentary on the comments. So Hamad Ahmed asked another really long question. Okay, so basically he's worried about forgetting stuff, and which is something a lot of people worry about. And then I replied that programming is an open book test with unlimited time, so study accordingly. And I think that perspective is just useful because it really is. That is exactly what it is. So, you know, when I think if you've not done an open book test at school at some point, I think you could probably imagine it. You don't memorize anything. You basically just get really good at referring to your notes and reminding yourself of things. And when you look at things from that approach, you don't have this fear at all. It just goes away completely. And you never forget. Or you don't worry about forgetting because you realize it doesn't matter. So that's a good reminder for students, because I think we're conditioned to worry about this because we're scarred by school. Like, I still have dreams sometime that I am failing a test or something stupid. And it scarred all of us. So don't worry about it. What else? Yeah, I think that's it. What does this say? Yeah, so this question, it's really nice that people answer the question, but this question is really skip stuff from how to ask questions. Like, honestly, I think I wouldn't have had the patience to answer it the same way these students are way more helpful and more patient than I am. I would have just been like, I can't run this code. That you've skipped steps from how to ask questions, so go through those steps and you'll probably spot the issue. And it was a typo. Like, it's always a typo. Questions. So I'm telling you that 99% of the time when people ask a question and they don't, it's not a conceptual question, but it's like, why doesn't this code work? It is always, 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 almost 100% of the time, it's number 7. So just really, if you're new and you're struggling with this, then just really pay attention to the steps here, and try to go back to the last good state where it wasn't broken, and then work back from there and see where you messed up. Though it's plausible, like theoretically, it's probably not a browser bug. it's probably a typo. So if you've given an honest effort and you're not able to find the typo, then maybe it is a bug. But usually I find most students didn't put in that time and really didn't do anything at all. So this is crucial. And as well as steps 1 through 6 and also 8 through 11. It's one thing that's really infuriating that you might not see, but I mean, there's no way you would see this, but someone asks a question and then I point them to like number 7, you didn't do it or whatever. Crap. How do I undo that? Well, so I point them to a specific thing that they messed up on and ask them to go through that again. And then they never respond. Like, they don't say, oh, like, thanks, or they don't update me on what happened. And that's number 11. And that's kind of sad too. But each step of this is really important. So don't gloss over this stuff. All right, so with that, I will end the session. So everyone that joined, thank you. It was really fun. We had some good questions and good discussions. And if you're watching, I hope that was helpful. If it wasn't, then send a complaint email to gordon@watchingcode.com and be honest. And yeah, and I hope to see everybody next week. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page. I've never said that, but subscribe to the YouTube page because you'll get a notification when we go on the air for the following weeks, and also subscribe to join the Facebook group, and then you'll get another update about office hours. But really what I recommend is if you are serious about learning, you should add a weekly calendar reminder to your Google Calendar or Outlook calendar or whatever you use. Because this is a really good opportunity that if you're stuck on anything, you just really don't have an excuse, because you can ask it directly, and there's time to ask questions clearly. So make sure you do that and take responsibility for your learning. A lot of students complain and kind of whine about online courses that there's no support. This is not true, in this case. So don't complain about that stuff when it's not true. So that's it. As usual, after office hours, we have a kind of informal off the air chat. And so if you want to join that, then call into the Hangout link and I'll talk to you then. All right. I'll see everyone. Thanks for joining. And I hope to see you next week or in the chat for the off the air session.
Thank you.